What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I hope you're doing well, as always. First up, on Monday, the China National Nuclear Corporation announced that China's first domestically developed high-temperature gas-cooked reactor, HTGR, the first unit of China's so-called fourth-generation nuclear reactors, had been connected to the national power grid in Shandong, eastern China. This technology, if successful, could go a long way in helping China reduce its carbon emissions over the long term. The technology is not new, however. In fact, it is quite old. The previous 4 HTGRs in operation in the United States and Germany were all closed down decades ago due to being too faulty, with helium leaks and fuel failure being common problems. Indeed, popular geopolitical strategist and writer Peter Zeihan observed yesterday, quote, "A new generation of nuclear power tech is necessary if nuclear power is to be part of a low-carbon future. This specific technology has been rolled out in the West for being overly expensive and faulty. Will be interesting if the Chinese can make it work." The China National Nuclear Corporation seems to think so, at least, expressing on Monday, quote, "China has become one of the few countries in the world to master the fourth-generation nuclear technology and is a world leader in nuclear power technology," end quote. With the opening on Monday, the HTGR is currently the world's only one in commercial operation. The reactor is made up of 2 small units with a total energy generation capacity of 200 megawatts. And there are plans for more, with the second unit under construction and expected to begin commercial operations in mid-2022. China is one of a small group of countries which is betting heavily on nuclear power as a key tool in decarbonating the energy sector, with 18.5 gigawatts of capacity currently under construction. Last year, according to the World Nuclear Industry Status Report, China surpassed France to become number 2 in the world in nuclear energy generation. The issues and challenges with the so-called fourth-generation nuclear energy technology is well documented. Ultimately, only time will tell whether the Chinese can make it work, as Peter Zeihan puts it. Next up, on Tuesday, Harvard University nanotechnology professor Charles Lieber was convicted of U.S. charges that he lied about his ties to a China-run recruitment program, part of a wider U.S. federal crackdown on PRC influence within U.S. research. A Boston jury found the 62-year-old professor guilty of making statements to authorities, filing false tax returns, and failing to report a Chinese bank account. Lieber had joined China's Wuhan University of Technology as a scientist in 2011 and was subsequently given more than $1.5 million to establish a research lab at the university and paid a monthly salary of $50,000 along with other benefits. Prosecutors said that Lieber had, quote, lied to the authorities about his participation, his affiliation with the university in Wuhan, and failed to declare income earned in China, end quote, which he was obligated to do as his $15 million in grants from the U.S. National Institute of Health and the U.S. Department of Defense required disclosure of, quote, any conflicts of interest, including financial support from foreign governments or organizations, end quote. Now, the specifics of this case are not terribly important for our purposes here. What is important is that this is a strong signal that, after years of laxity, Washington is now just as serious about cracking down on science and technology, as well as economic espionage, as Beijing is. This case is among one of the highest profile to come from the so-called China Initiative launched by the U.S. Department of Justice in 2018. And while we're on the subject, let's jump to the other side of the Pacific. On Tuesday, state-run Science and Technology Daily published a report claiming that the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress is updating China's Science and Technology Progress Law to, quote, provide a legal framework for the state to spend lavishly on frontier areas as the country seeks leadership of next-generation technologies, end quote. This is only the second time that the 20-year-old law has been amended. This development is very clearly part of the wider scale technology contest between China and the United States and Beijing's efforts for greater technology self-sufficiency, which we've been following on here for well over a year now. Beijing's efforts may be seeing some results too. Last week, a report published by the Harvard Kennedy School argued that China could become a global leader over the next decade in critical technologies, including artificial intelligence and quantum computing. The legal amendments seek to place more emphasis on the public role in promoting, quote, long-term science and technology planning, end quote, and, quote, stimulating the innovation vitality of researchers, end quote. And finally, let's end with some key updates for the Chinese economy and the crisis-hit property sector. Quickly, if you're enjoying the episode, don't forget to hit the like button. It's the only way this video can be shown to new people. And if you're watching this for the first time, you're getting some value from the episode, maybe consider subscribing, hit that bell notification, and you'll have the most up-to-date analysis when I release these every day. Okay, let's move on. Early in the week, analysts with brokerage firm Huaxi Securities Co. Limited wrote in a research note that despite clear policy easing in the housing sector, Chinese property developers generally and private developers specifically continue to face painful liquidity issues, and as such, without further regulatory easing and government support, China's real estate sector will continue to cool. According to the note, sales and investment shrank and inventory rose during the week of December 10th through 16th. New housing sales by floor space in 58 surveyed cities dropped by 0.1% compared with the same period last year, a slower contraction rate than the 25.7% and 25.2% declines in the previous 2 weeks. The brokerage firm also found that developers' land purchases remained sluggish last week, falling 75.4% year on year to 39.7 billion RMB, approximately $6.2 billion in 100 surveyed cities. This morning, Chinese financial media outlet Caixin Media calculated based on recent Ministry of Finance data that local and central governments in China brought in 11.2% less fiscal revenue in November than in the same month a year earlier. This is the third straight month of decline, putting increased fiscal pressure on local governments, which have also seen land sales, a critical source of extra budgetary income, hit. Caixin Media reports, quote, China's central and local governments suffered aggregate year-on-year fiscal revenue declines of 0.1% in October and 2.1% in September. The ministry pinned last month's drop on the tax relief that the government provided to companies that run coal-fueled power plants, heating companies, as well as micro, small, and mid-sized manufacturers. End quote. The US-based Wall Street Journal reports today that factory gate prices in China are far outpacing consumer prices, quote, signaling a gulf between weak domestic demand and strong overseas demand that is powered in particular by US hunger for China's manufactured goods, end quote, suggesting little to no rebalancing in the Chinese economy in regards to household income. On this point, one Beijing-based American economist observed today, quote, what really seems to be happening, in other words, is that while domestic demand is surging in the United States, mainly because household income is surging, it is declining in China, mainly because the growth in household income has lagged GDP growth. China's surging trade surplus and the surging American trade deficit together reflect the gap between growth in US household income and growth in Chinese household income. End quote. Hey guys, I'd love to hear what you thought about some of the updates we covered in today's episode, so throw your comments below. Always love hearing from you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.